journey takes us to the point where consciousness reveals the awareness of who we are. This precipice of awareness guides our path of revelation through contact, interaction, and disclosure. We are on the threshold of evolutionary realizations, technologies, and awareness of our place in the universe. We are the phenomena. Welcome to MUFON Contact Radio with your host, Richard Banasak.
Hello, everybody. Welcome. Thanks for, tuning in. And, we've been doing really good and we've been having a lot of fun. But this is the MUFON Contact Radio Show on the precipice of awareness. And I am your host, Richard Banasak. And again, I just wanted to make sure that I say we are the phenomena. Anyway, in this episode, we will take a preview of what I call the ether symbol case, which is a MUFON case that I was good enough to investigate with another MUFON investigator, Ruben Uriarte, who is the Northern California State Director for MUFON in California. And in this particular case, we're going to look at a drawing that the experiencer, who during our interview created, and that's going to be the beginning of hopefully further episodes and revelations about this very involved case. We also have during this episode a few of the interest that I'd like to share with you, whether it's people, videos, websites, just science or whatever that it's involved in it. So I want to get started on our adventure and our journey today with. So for all of you who haven't or who have, Disclosure Day has been out, probably about 2 weeks, and since the 12th there. So it's been just under 2 weeks. But if you haven't seen the movie, I would suggest it. I'm obviously a person who's in ufology, and I'm a MUFON field investigator and an experiencer resource team member. And I watched it, and everybody has their thoughts and feelings about it. But you know what? Go see it. It's a very well done movie, obviously, Steven Spielberg. And I just want to say that I thought it was a really cool movie. It's a good movie. It's about everything that we are, including the phenomenon. So I'd like to share just the trailer with you and to suggest that you do go see it with yourself, with your friends, with whatever. So here we go with the trailer.
What did you steal?
Secrets. The data they paid me to protect.
Are they people?
No.
Good morning, Kansas City. Let's take a look at today. Let's today is today's.
Do you understand what she's saying?
I hear it. It's gibberish. I can't understand it.
And I can.
What's happening to me?
People are starved for the truth. I'm a part of it now. I'm just sorry that they made you a part of it too.
Hello, Jane. Please. Have a seat.
This 79-year terror campaign of lies has to end.
What are you gonna do?
Full disclosure to the whole world.
That truth will upend all established order across the entire world. If you do this, there's no undoing it.
Why would they do this?
When the time is right, everything will become clear.
Whatever happens, don't you let go.
What a cool show. I really, really enjoyed it. My family enjoyed it. So I will only say three things about, just as a comment. First of all, you are the seeker. You are the person who decides what you believe and what you don't believe. So you decide and use your own intuitiveness and your own understanding to decide what it is. A couple of things that I like, though, just as our icon when we have for our show, the MUFON Contact Radio Show, you see a rabbit and you see an alien, and they're sort of mixed together. If the show, the Discovery, talks about animals and the way they represent and interact, so that's part of the reason why I created that icon, because it came from a case where that in fact did happen to the experiencer. They saw rabbits. It really was UFO, aliens, beings, and all that. Finally, the movie at the end, I'm not going to spoil anything to it, but it talks about that part of wisdom that teaches us to listen to ourselves, and that's the key. The film ended with that, to listen. So just thought it was real cool. If you guys are really interested in that, and I would suggest that you do, take a time just to watch it on TV, watch at home. Okay. What I want to do is I also want to go and I have many videos that I see, and this is a really cool one. Eddie Abbott does this, and this was on X, and there's the credit for the site. But I thought it was really cool, so I'm going to let you watch it. It's only about 50 seconds to a minute, but it'll say it, and we'll come right back. I thought it was cool. Here we go. So, sorry, just want to make sure we got it. So I just wanted, one of the things cool about that particular video is what the heck was that? I mean, obviously it slowed it down, and it appeared to be some sort of multiple crafts going by. I don't know. I'm not saying that. I just thought it was really cool, and it's something that I think that I believe, many of these folks see these things, they report them. There's a lot of stuff on YouTube, X, and other platforms of some cool stuff that is happening out there. But you decide what you want to watch. You decide what you're going to believe. All right, so we're going to move on here, and I want to go on. I want to go on to the next place and stage. So one of the things that I often like to do is I often like to talk about people of interest. And there was a guy, I mean, you'll see him here. His name was Paul Villa, and he was a contactee, in the 50s and all that. And he is known, as it says here, for these claims of his communication with, phenomenon, extraterrestrials. And according to him, as it says there, In 1963, he met a group of these human-like beings who arrived in a large flying disc. And as you see there, that's the disc that he's talking about. He said they allowed him to photograph their disc and told him it came from a galaxy of, and as much as I understand, Coma Berenices. He described the ship as a mother-type ship that had control over smaller monitoring discs, and said the beings could communicate both telepathically and spoke languages, which I thought was really cool. The other thing that I thought about this particular experience, and you can go and find him online, there's a number of books and other sightings here, but during the course of a number of investigations by many people, including the Black Vault and all that, they found these pictures when they did the release and asked for release of the FOIA releases and other things. But these pictures are from VIA's collection, and they were on the Goddard Space Flight Center's website, and they have them in their archives. And as you can see, you know, they obviously, these were of significance, importance, and you'll see those 6 pictures there. And the thing that's cool about these pictures is they're of different parts of the same ship. Obviously, the one that's equally cool is that one that's on the top, my top left, that's sideways. And that, of course, was indicative of what we understand and learning recently from Bob Lazar's, that this is how these particular ships fly. Also, likewise, there's a video that is part of that collection that has a short, maybe 5 or 6 second view of him being allowed to film it. So we're going to look at that real quick and see what you think. So, I mean, I thought it was really interesting. Obviously, the claim is that it's the actual ships, the way it was moving, and pretty spectacular stuff. You can find all this online. There's a credit for how I did my research to obtain it. So I thought it was pretty cool. All right, so what we're going to do as we go on, and we're going to go on to our first case related to what we're talking about today. And this case I investigated when we received it, which was in, it says that it was reported to us on the 23rd of April in 2023. And that's when I talked to the person who reported it. And there's an interest in this because these sighting cases are seen by everybody and reported by everybody. But anyway, this particular case is a Fontana sighting case. It occurred on the 22nd. It was reported on the 23rd, and in Fontana, California. And the interesting thing about it is the person who reported it also had went online at the same time as he's seeing what he's seeing, and we're going to talk about that in a second, because it actually involved other related parts of it. So the case summary, as you can read here, is he reported seeing this dark triangular object with a faint bluish white light at the corners moving slowly and silently from the southwest to the northeast. He only saw it for maybe 5 or 10 seconds before it disappeared along a tree line. This sighting occurred at nighttime from his backyard while he had been stargazing, which a lot of folks do. I do it myself. He said the object appeared to glide smoothly, made no sound. It did not resemble an aircraft or a helicopter. He is commonly seen in this location. This location is a flight path for LAX and Ontario here in Southern California. So there's a lot of craft. There's a lot of smaller airports. So you get used to seeing all that. We see SpaceX all the time from Vandenberg as it, shoots off, and we see not only it, but the plume. So we're pretty aware here, as he was. The witness checked his flight tracker app. And again, for those of you, if you have flight tracker app, you can actually see what plane is going overhead, and hit it. It'll tell you where it's going and all, and it's actually all in real time. So he immediately checked it afterwards and reported that there was no aircraft shown above in his area. So whatever he was seeing was not shown on his flight tracker. And that doesn't mean anything other than the fact that whatever he was seeing didn't have some sort of transponder that he could view it. And there's many reasons for that. Likewise, a Reddit user and this is the thing that's significant, at the Coachella concert, for those of you who don't know what the Coachella concert is, we'll talk about it in a second, reported seeing at the same time as they're going online, a dark triangular or V-shaped object moving silently across the night sky for several seconds before it disappeared from view. The account described no visible navigation lights or uncertainty about the object's size, altitude, and comments. Now, for those of you who are familiar with this, the Coachella concert was held April 24th through the 26th, 2026 in the city of Indio, which is approximately an hour due east of the location that our witness had. And it runs its concert for the weekends, and the performance goes for 3 days, and then it's late at night, right around the time that this actually event occurred. This pictures and images that you're seeing was sent to me by the witness, and that's a picture of his house, and that's the direction of the flight path that he saw. And he also drew this picture, which is his rendition, which, again, without a picture, without a video, a drawing is always good, because you can, you transcribe a lot of things, what you see right then, contemporaneous, and he did at that particular time, which I thought was really cool. Additionally, what you're seeing here on the screen is a rendition of what the AI that I did created. And as you can see, it's dark. It's a similar. I asked the AI just recreate what he has reported, and it did. So I thought that was pretty cool. And then, finally, I want to pull that off for a second before I add the next thing that I saw that he said. It was a very significant thing, because when I went on Reddit, those to look what the Coachella folks were saying, I also saw some videos that people had either uploaded to social media, Reddit, and others, and you can clearly see a light and lights. I wasn't able to get it. I don't know if they had already moved it, but it removed it, and a lot of people do that, and then they'll keep it for themselves and they'll show it on some other platform. I wasn't able to find that, but again, if there's anybody listening who was there that night who had a similar sighting, I'd be interested to see it. What I also wanted to show here is this next slide, and the next slide is just that during the course of me reporting it, it was picked up by the MUFON Journal, which I suggest everybody, if you're really interested in what MUFON does, and there's a lot of cool things, cases, information, stories, highlights. This was in that particular MUFON that year, 2023 in June, where it also included my case. Again, way cool, and it was a very significant thing. And what I like to tell people when we do these things is that they are able to see it, especially through what MUFON does with their journal. Again, I highly recommend it. All right. So now today's primary and focus case for us involves a case that I received, and we're going to talk about that in just a second. We're going to go into the case probably just right after the break, which is coming up in a couple of minutes. But I wanted to also talk about this idea that why do I say that we are the phenomena? Not only in the introduction, what I said today. And so what do I mean by that? And so I pose these three questions as we get started here. The first one is, why do I say we are the phenomenon? And then the second one is consciousness the next phase, just in terms of realizing who we really are? And what part does the phenomena in relationship to the UAPs, UFOs, and encounters and all the other aspects that relate to it play in this whole idea about what what I mean by we are the phenomenon. And then, of course, the other issues is where do we go from here with getting past either the first, second, or third. Now, what I'd like to for you all to look at is this picture that I've attached to this slide. And this picture that you're seeing was drawn by the experiencer. And we're going to get into that as we just before we go to break here. And it involves the experiencer's interpretation, intuition, urge, desire, or whatever. Now, we have seen in many of these MUFON cases, both in terms of sightings and in terms of people who have either had contact, somehow have interacted with UFOs, UAPs, and or the beings that are associated with them. And these are common things that those folks want to recreate, whether it's in their journal work. A lot of folks will do that after they're able to deal with or remember or put to paper what they experienced because they don't want to forget. And during the course of those things, when they do remember their experiences, they want to visualize it. And that's what we tell them when we do these things is we ask them to help not only write, because that stimulates your memory, especially that memory which you may have put away and tucked away in some room or corner of your mind that you didn't because of trauma or many other reasons. But one of the other things that we ask them to do is to recreate it in terms of drawing. Now, some people do that with computers. Some people will do that with AI. I do that often. Some people are actually good enough to draw, or it doesn't matter if you are, they'll have somebody else draw it for them. And doing that drawing and that recreation, that also brings back the experience, because drawings and writings, not only do they on their surface have what they express, but they also paint a picture, like any picture that we see in any kind of film or movie or aspect that somehow conveys something that we either may have experienced or whatever. And in this particular case, you're going to see as we go after the break here that these pictures tell a story. And in the ether symbol case, it tells an initial story. And I would encourage all of those of you who are listening, who are interested, I'm going to give my email address, and I'm going to include the MUFON's main address at the end of the broadcast. But if you have experiences like this that relate to you either writing or drawing and you wish to share or express those, I'd really be interested in learning them. So anyway, getting back to our questions. Why do I say we are the phenomenon? Is conscious the next phase in terms of realizing who we really are? And what part does the UAP, UFO phenomenon aspect play? And then, of course, where do we go from there? All right. So before we get going, I just wanted to mention one guy that we call this guy the guru of ufology, but he's a thinker outside the box and outside the norms of what paradigm, whether it's our own paradigms or what we've locked into our mindset in terms of the box that we live in. He thinks outside the box. Dr. Jacques Vallée is a PhD, and I was blessed enough to see him earlier this month at Contact in the Desert, which is a ufology conference here in the Coachella Valley. I just wanted to give you a little bit of information about him in terms of background. Jacques has studied the history and culture of UFO phenomenon and has written a slew of fantastic books. I'm telling you, a lot of good books on the subject, always calling for a scientific investigation reports rather than an approach rooted in just belief, which is the equally part and important. Among ufologists, and this is the irony, Jacques is considered a heretic among heretics for opposing the typical opinion that UFOs are nuts and bolts spaceships piloted by extraterrestrials. That's a surprise, right? Aren't they? That's what most people think. Jacques doesn't necessarily believe that. Jacques once said that I'll be disappointed if the UFOs turned out to be only space craft from the outer space. His PhD, just to give you some background, is an industrial engineer and computer science, and he's done a lot of great work at his time, not only with Dr. J. Allen Hynek with Project Bluebird, but his work at the Stanford Research Institute and even some work in remote viewing. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to break here just for a second, and we're going to come back, and we're going to continue this because this is leading us to try to see why I say we are the phenomenon. So come back with us for the second half of the show, and we'll go further into it. Thank you.
Join us in Cincinnati, August the 27th through the 30th for one of the premier UFO conferences in the United States. The MUFON Symposium 2026, UFO Revelations, Impact on Society and Science. This year's event features keynote speakers Alex Dietrich and the intrepid Peter Robbins, along with 8 additional investigators, researchers, and authors presenting the latest developments in UFO research and disclosure. Master of Ceremonies Stacy Wright will guide attendees through 4 unforgettable days of presentations, discussions, vendors, and special events. Register today at MUFONSymposium.com. That's MUFONSymposium.com.
Patriarch's oxygen water addresses a condition called hypoxia, which is insufficient oxygen in the cells and tissues. The fact is that hypoxia triggers 90% of all chronic conditions, including circulation issues, low oxygen levels in the blood, and more. By drinking Patriarch's oxygen water, you can restore oxygen levels in the body, restore energy, reduce age spots, and renew stem cells. Now, as an UNX listener, you can get 10% off of Patriarch's ultra-high oxygen content water at patriarchs.us/discount/UNX-news, or check the shop page at UNX Network for more information.
Okay, hey, welcome back. This is the second part of our show and our episode, which will focus on just previewing the ether symbol case, which was a MUFON case that I began investigating with another investigator in 2026. But I want to get back to our discussion about why we're going that way. So as I've showed you before, this is Jacques Vallée, and I want to sort of blow this up because this is important on this road, and you see it, and you can hear me. So I mean, I'm good with the way we're going with it. So one of the things that I want to go from, and so Vallée is considered a heretic among heretics, and the idea with that is that his interdimensional hypothesis, which is what he believes the phenomenon is really related to, as opposed to what we call the extraterrestrial hypothesis. Now, he, along with others, believe more so that the potential of this interdimensional hypothesis is more accurate. Not saying that the other one is, but it's maybe more expansive and as we relate to it. So there's another of other notable scientists, Hal Puthoff, Crispin Math, Eric Davis's, and their idea of what the phenomenon in terms of the ufology could relate to are these ideas of ultra-terrestrials, interdimensionals, crypto-terrestrials, and even in some cases, the unknown related one. Now, what I did here in this particular case is just to try to give a little bit of an understanding with this. What you're seeing here is a perspective of what these two different ideas come from. So the one that is on my right, the extraterrestrial hypothesis, is what most people think involve what we're seeing and what they're experiencing, which is we are physical beings, where these physical beings from another planet or system come over here and come to Earth, and they're from different systems. They're biological. They come in spacecrafts. They go at warp speed, and they come here for various reasons. Do they come here to explore? Do they come here to conquer? There's obviously a lot of sightings, but a lot of what is really taking hold in ufology is this idea of the interdimensional, which is what Jacques Vallée and a number of other notable people in ufology, and even a number of current scientists. And I even believe, to be honest with you, when it was asked by the government to release, and they commented that we don't have any extraterrestrial, we don't need, they probably are using wordplay with that. Instead of using the idea of extraterrestrial or aliens from wherever, they were probably referring more so and answering no, but what they knew in the back of their mind is this whole idea of this other category of interdimensional, crypto, or ultra terrestrial, or whatever. And in that particular case, this is really related to what we call their conscious interdimensional beings that exist across multiple dimensions and multiple sort of realities, if you will. Obviously, as opposed to coming from a physical planet, the idea here is they come from within the multiverse or higher dimensions. They're conscious-based. In a lot of cases, they're not physical, or they're hybrid, or their ability to have to manifest in the physical in terms of if it's needed. Their travel doesn't necessarily come through a linear space. It could come through this idea of interdimensional, three-dimensional transport or projections or whatever. There are obviously other people who are more well-versed in the idea of that. And their whole purpose and intent may be in terms of just as a teacher or helping us to evolve or teaching us about awareness or balance or consciousness. And so, a lot of folks will tell you that, hey, you know what? I'm not sure I believe that. And, I'm good with that. And, this is for those who have also thought about this idea about it being, extraterrestrial, and maybe just entering the idea that this current stream, albeit it's an old stream, and you're going to see here that these are more than just physical other planet extraterrestrial type beings, that the probability or the likelihood is that they're more interdimensional, interconsciousness, and that relationship changes a lot because it focuses on a different perspective. Anyway, so let's get into where we're going with what I want you to see. And our case today, and our primary case, is what I'm calling the ether symbol case. And it's only a preview, and the simple reason is I just started investigating it, we at MUFON, because we received it in February of this year, 2026. And it came from a person who lives in Mexico. As you know, MUFON is international, and we get many, many cases from many, many countries. And as you all are aware, and if you're not, the phenomenon is not limited to our neck of the woods. It's a worldwide, if not universal-wide, phenomenon and experience. And in this particular case, I chose this preview because the first interaction that we had, and I had with this case, involved what you're about to see and what I'm about to explain. And that's why I took a little bit of a detour and wanted to go down this sort of smaller rabbit hole before I even continue with my investigation. And then later we're going to do an episode on the full case. But so having said that, let's continue here. So began the investigation in February of 2026. Here's a narrative of the initial part of it. The narrative, the narrator, in this case, the experiencer, recalls a first abduction experience in September of 2017, which is where our case begins. They went to sleep and they dreamt that they woke up, and then that they dreamt and that they woke up upset. They explained to me that they saw themselves floating in this particular awake state that they thought was a dream. They were floating beside their bed, which is what they saw. Next to them, or what they saw, was 4 beings were nearby, 2 on each side of the person who's relating this. The beings were described as tall, gray figures with large black eyes. The person who said this felt that they, or the whole thing that they were seeing, was something that she believed, he believed, they believed was something that they should remember. Anyway, the narrator remembered being covered in a translucent sheet over their body, which made the details of what they were trying to view difficult to see. The beings appeared to have syringes in their hands, and they were either injecting something into the experiencer, or they were removing something. The experiencer said that, I'm not sure if they're injecting something into me or they're extracting something from me, which is a common tool, but it was around the area of the stomach. The experiencer felt significant pain during this experience, as has been usual with previous accounts of abduction and interactions with this particular phenomenon. The experiencer woke up frightened and with significant abdominal pain. The experiencer noticed in their stomach area needle marks where they remembered seeing these 4 beings either injecting or extracting something. The experiencer remembers running to her mother and reported the marks. Likewise, I'm sorry, just let me go back one because I wanted to go back just a little bit. Likewise, the experiencer created a drawing as a result of what she experienced. And in the drawing, you'll see, and as we've shown, there's this idea that, because she said, hey, I heard during the course of what I was seeing in this dream state, the word ether in her head. And then she saw also, likewise, some symbols in her head. Now, one of the things about our experiencer, during the course of our investigation, she sent me a number of photos. This one is just a number of many of them, whether it's ship, crafts, or marks on her body. Now, I know you can't tell with this slide, but underneath this drawing of a rectangle craft, there's actually an old scar that she remembers waking up and seeing, and she eventually took a picture of. But let's get on to where I'm going with this. Now, this is the picture that I have here, and it's important to blow it up and let you see it. And I asked in my analysis, and I've been analyzing now for probably about 30 days, and I have used a AI program, obviously, because just like any good encyclopedia when we were younger, it collates information or collects based on the inquiry that you ask. So the cool thing now is you can just ask, like we did when we used to watch Star Trek, hey, what is this or what could it be? So I asked the AI a number of questions, and we spend a lot of time, and quite frankly, the analysis report is pretty significant. But the summary was basically that based on everything that it looked at, it was a hermetic reading operation or an alchemical operation. And what I mean by that, it took the whole document and from the bottom, and it framed it like an alchemaic type operation as, and we'll talk about alchemy here in just a second in relationship to the ancient writings that we alone have been a part of. But it broke the drawing down into these sections, the ether section, which it's calling the fifth element, right? So air, fire, water, and of the four elements, and the fifth being ether or spirit. The next was the symbolic laws, which is formula, which is what they anticipated the AI and anticipated in terms of determination that those symbols were patterns that were actually analyzed and determined to be not random dueling patterns, but that they had a number of consistencies and branches that appeared to show a base language. And then from there, the beings who were part of it were analyzed to consider that it also played a part in terms of the four coordinated intelligence. And then this idea of the next lower hierarchy was this operation or on a living matter, which our experiencer was. And then what are they transforming in terms of the human vessel, whether they're injecting or extracting. And I thought that was pretty interesting because, if you look at this from a hermetic or an alchemic standpoint, the picture, which we've learned from many, many experiencers who draw pictures, there's symbology in it, the universal understanding and language, both in terms of universe, whether we talk about intuitiveness, whether we talk about our own extra perception, sensories. Sometimes when you see something that reminds you of your mom who has passed and you happen to see a red rose near a house that looks like your old house, you automatically associate that, if it comes to mind, with somebody who may be saying hello to you. It's sort of this kind of idea about how the universe, about how consciousness speaks to us. So I asked it, and the irony of it is I asked AI, give me your opinion as to, based on this idea of it being an alchemic operation, what could it be conveying? And again, this is just an opinion. And what you're seeing here is the image may not be about extraterrestrials at all. It may encode a philosophical idea. Invisible principles, ether, spirit, acting through ordered patterns, symbols, upon embodied life, the human figure, by means of transformational agents, the four being, producing a change in fundamental life center. Or what does that mean? Under this interpretation, the alien appearance is secondary. The composition functions much more like an esoteric diagram illustrating descent of a higher order into material existence, with the syringes symbolizing the transfer or exchange of essence rather than merely a medical procedure. And I thought, holy moly, that is a significant thought. And again, just for those of you, and I want to come back here just for a second and we'll go back to it. Again, this is a thought, it's an opinion, it's just an idea. You think and believe whatever you want. And I'm not necessarily saying it's saying that. I know that through my inquiry and AI, that they're neutral. They don't pick either side, good or bad, right or wrong, moral or not. It's a neutral thing. Like most science-based things, it's just, hey, here's the facts, here's the data, and the data and facts that we're predicating this on is what's stored in our library, and you come up with it. But it's a pretty interesting thing because we've had these stories for as long as I know that people have been investigating these things, of people who've had encounters, whether it's only sightings or abductions, and they were told by the beings about many things, about disasters, about life, about evolving themselves, thinking of others, love, not destruction. These are universal truths. So it was ironic that this idea about, the phenomenon in relationship to these beings could potentially be a vehicle, but that's not really the issue. So as you know, ufologists, including Jacques and a number, don't believe. I'm not saying what they believe, but what I am saying is the idea is this idea about this conscious, and some people will call it many things. Some people tendency to call it paranormal or whatever, is the overarching idea about the way the world is of all these things that are under it. One being this ufology is really the secondary or thirdary concept. So that goes along with what the AI generated, this idea. It's much more of a philosophical, conscious, spiritual, evolutionary approach to who we are. And, we could take it for whatever it's worth, but I want to add this because this next slide that I bring up is something that I thought was a pretty interesting thought, and I'm going to blow it up so that you can see it on your screen. So what I did is I also asked this same program to give me the 4 main basic ancient languages, both not only scientific, but philosophical, religious, up until the present, and how they describe or write things. And you'll see the Sumerian cuneiform. For those of you who don't know, obviously this is the old Sumerian civilization that was uncovered in the 1800s, and all the cuneiforms and symbols that were related to that, and how they were able to, science and academia were able to decipher a lot of what was happening. And these are real accurate stuff. Then we have throughout the ages this Hermetic language, again, a group of people who continue to be interacting and using symbols to talk about things, as the first one there is as above, so below symbol. And then in this idea about the pyramid or the triangle, this 3 parts of wisdom, knowing, will, and to dare to know in terms of courage. And then of course, alchemy, which is what the AI realized, that this patterns that were drawn by the experiencer was more consistent with its operation. Again, alchemy is based on operations. It's not based on actually verbatim language, but more symbols. And as you can see, these symbols are used today. The symbol for fire that you see there is the upside triangle. They have the one for water there, air, salt, sulfur, gold. These are all symbols that are there. And then even with the Egyptian hieroglyphics, we were able to learn and decipher what those ancients use. And then the last one that I asked was this apocryphal writing. And people will say, well, what's apocryphal? A lot of it has to do with what we call hidden meaning, or in some cases, mysterious writings. And for those of you who are well versed in the religious books, and especially in the Catholic Church, and even in the Muslim world, the Sufis and all that, they talk about these apocryphal writings, the Gospel of Thomas, the famous book, the Book of Enoch, which is ripe with all kinds of symbolism and stories and inter-wisdom. So this idea about, that, we shouldn't look at what somebody, an experiencer who's experienced what she believes is a valid, she called it dream, but as we all know in this world, dreams are really associated with what we call abduction. And a lot of what has happened and remembered has been screened out or put in a closet somewhere. And then for some reason, an event comes and they all of a sudden start remembering them, but they're remembered in sort of this cloudy, fuzzy, I'm not sure if it's real or not real. Some people like to call them dreams, because I asked her, and she used that word just because she didn't know how else to explain something that was so real, that caused so much pain, and she remembered such detail. And in the case you're going to see when we do ultimately reveal the bigger case, we're talking about 15, 16 drawings, writings, and other experiences that she had. And to think that, the beings, the interdimensional being could be or can be trying to, again, guide us and teach us, it's just a thought. Anyway, so as we go along, I just wanted to, use that as emphasis. But, one of the things too here, I will let you know, the case is continued. continuing, and I am going to be in the future episodes revealing more about this very fascinating case, and especially after I do more analysis of not only that, what you saw, but other drawings and other pictures and other facts about abductions and about sighting that particular experiencer had. Now, let's get back to or close as we begin to end our episode here. So the question I bring back up to you is why are we the phenomenon? And why do I say it? Because I think there's ample enough evidence throughout our history, in the ancients, through our religion and through the way that we've been expressing it, that what's happening and who we are is more so of who we are as a total being, which is not only matter and physical, it's also that other part of us, our intuition, our psychic, our spiritual, if you want to call it, our esoteric, our religious, all those. Again, we all know some believe in angels, some don't. Some believe that they believe angels, but you don't necessarily think that this ability of interdimensional beings. And again, some believe that in fairies, and some believe in gnomes, and some believe or don't believe in those. And so how is the spirit world able, or consciousness, whatever you want to call it, able to manifest itself if it wants to talk to us? Will it do it in a bird like it did in Disclosure Day? Will it do it in the form of a deer or a raccoon? Or in the case of our icon at the beginning of this program, a rabbit that eventually turned into a being. So, it's really left up to you. I mean, and so that's why I call us the phenomenon. I don't know what the phenomenon is, because I don't think we're at the point where we're able to even comprehend that, but we have indications not only in our own life, in our own dreams, in our own interactions, in our own daily things, but these other indications, it's all around. You don't need anybody to tell you anything about disclosure, about life, and about all that. You just need to watch and look and ask the questions yourself. Again, I believe that the vehicle is this idea of consciousness, and I do think that there's enough information to think that ufology, UAPs are one form of expression about us trying to understand who we are. So where do we go from here? Well, that's a good question. And it's been my belief that it's left up to anybody who wants to ask and is serious enough to ask that question. But before we go, I want to make sure that you have my email address, because any of you who this episode resonates with you, you've had experiences, you have sightings, you have interaction, drawings, pictures, or whatever, and you want to contact me, my email address is mufoninvban@AOL.com. That's a MUFON investigator, Banasek. That's what it means. I'm also going to give you MUFON's other website, because if you just want to report a sighting, please go there and report your sighting or your contact. So again, I think that's very cool. All right, so we're at the end here, and I just want to give you one final thought. And it's a very important thought, because I said at the end, where do we go from here? Well, I think, like the Disclosure movie said at the end, we need to listen. And so what do we listen to? If you listen long enough, it's like a light, and that's what awareness is. Awareness is like a light that turns on, and as it gets brighter, you become more aware of what and who you are. So if you allow this awareness, I think what you'll realize is we all are on the realization, the journey of trying to find out and trying to finally see what is already there. And so that's the funniness about awareness. You don't really have to go looking for who you are, what you are, or where you're going. You just have to realize who you are. And once you realize and are aware of that, you'll really realize something that you've always known and who you really are. Thanks a lot. Hey, we'll see you next episode, and have a good day. Bye.